can set something in motion, and the rest of the world is never the same again.
Guy,
Hi there.
what's
Hey,
going on?
how's it going, man? Sorry for running a bit late. We were just coming off another.
Oh, no, no worries. I'm sitting at home waiting for you. That's cool.
Yeah, aren't we all, huh? At home?
Is James joining us, or is it just you and me?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were just together on the interview, so he's probably switching over as we speak.
Excellent, excellent. This isn't your first feature film, is it? Or
No,
yeah,
it's my third.
your third.
Yeah, I would never attempt something like this on my first film. Hopefully.
It's complicated. Yeah, it's an undertaking.
Yeah.
Sci-fi always is. You know, science fiction is always a big undertaking.
Yeah, for sure. It's just I think I mean every film I've done is very very different than the previous one, and that's kind of how I'm trying to chart my career. So for me, it was you know at least the first sci-fi movie. We should say that. So then
Excellent.
definitely you're right about that.
Here's James. There you go. Everyone's here. James,
Never been to Vegas before. This is very exciting.
greetings from Las Vegas, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about LX2048. I love it. Reminds me of THX 1138. Maybe a little play on that.
Yeah, for sure.
James, let's start with you. In the near future, mankind destroyed the ozone, spends its time in a virtual world, and your character is old-fashioned because he tries to live his life as it used to be. And how's that working out for him?
Badly, very badly indeed. And that's actually something that I really kind of identified with when I first read the script. I'm something of a Luddite. I'm not technologically very on it, and I feel a little confused, especially now that we've all completely, Guy's been so prescient. He's written this film, which when I read it 4 years ago, I was like, yeah, okay, that's kind of interesting. Maybe the world could end up like that in 50 years. And now it's already happened. Before the movie even came out, we're kind of living half of it already. So, that's kind of wild.
And Guy, when Adam comes home to find his family living in a virtual world, his kids are gaming, his wife's on the beach, but in her own bathroom. Is this the shape of things to come?
I don't know, man. I actually, when I was writing it, oddly enough, I thought a version of it already exists. If you just change VR to cell phones and, iPads and all that kind of stuff, I think a lot of us that are parents out there, we're already seeing our kids developing almost like addictive relationships to electronics, so in that part I think we're kind of already there. I think in terms of the virtual reality aspect of it, which this is a very interesting question. I've been privy to a lot of this advanced technology from its onset, and it's mind-blowing, and I don't really know what will happen when it would become more advanced, smaller in size, more kind of wireless in nature. Like how much of our time we'd want to spend in our own world that seems to be going in the wrong direction right now to like an imaginary universe,
Absolutely. And, James, what is Adam's motivation? Because his life's about to be erased, literally, but he has such a toxic relationship with his family. I mean, he's like a futuristic Tin Man. That's how I saw him.
That's a pretty good way of looking at it. I think
That's amazing.
he's just trying to stay afloat. He's trying to make sense out of something that he's trying to fit square pegs into round holes and failing and floundering, and then suddenly he's faced with this kind of his own proper mortality and the existential threat that comes along with it, and I did feel, kind of like, oh, well, there's some parts of this that I kind of understand, the idea of feeling very out of step with a lot of what's happening in the world and not really understanding and not really knowing who I can talk to about it, because you know, if you engage in this online world, it feels like everybody took the class and they all understand it and they all dig it. And I'm sitting at home going, but I'm not sure even if I like it, never mind if I understand it, you know. Yeah, I'm not sure that particularly answers the question, but those are some random thoughts around that subject.
And the world is drugged up. I mean, the population takes a pill, lithium X. It's like the world's really living in a matrix in your movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be, for me, it made total sense. I mean, that if we were really confined to being at home and not being able to be in sunlight, I thought to myself, well, somebody has to start thinking about what happens to the mental psyche of the population, right? And again, very oddly and very bizarrely, it's a point that is starting to be raised as we speak, in connection with what's going on around us right now. I mean, there's certainly a rise in suicides, in mental depression these days. You know, talking about the fact that we're social creatures and we're not supposed to be kind of be confined in this way. Not to mention all these kids that are now being taught that they should keep 6 feet from one another as opposed to showing affection to one another. So who knows what the repercussions of that is going to be. So I actually thought it was a realistic idea that, you know, that they would try and kind of like at least control the population by way of making everybody feel relaxed, so they don't take to the streets and burn the whole place down, you know.
Yeah, your movie's coming to real life. You know,
I'm telling you, it's scaring me too. I didn't mean that to be the reality. You know?
And James, tell me about acting against yourself. And Mark, you can jump on this too. I mean, Guy, you can jump on this too. The challenges of that, because the effects look seamless. I mean, I think that was the highlight of the film. And that was really an amazing sequence.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. For me, acting opposite myself, I basically by the end of it, I just realized that I never wanted to work with me again, because I would shoot one half of the scene, and then we would shoot the other half of the scene, and I'd suddenly have an idea and do something which I hadn't anticipated I would do. And then I would, on behalf of this guy, be really annoyed because this guy kind of stole a sequence. And if this guy could go back and reshoot his stuff, he would have probably done it differently now. But I couldn't. And anyway, I couldn't be annoyed with anyone because it was only me that I got to be annoyed with. I was very pleased that Guy knew what he was doing, because there were definitely moments when I did not.
No, for me, it was when you direct these kinds of sequences, I think, you know, you enter a place in your mind where you try and imagine how the scene will come together. And it's very challenging on the day typically, because I mean, James was just amazing to work with throughout the entire film. I couldn't have asked for a better collaborator on this. And this is how I feel about the whole movie, like a collaborative effort. But you know, your crew sometimes, your DP, people around you, they kind of question where you want to put the camera, what do you want to do. And I've been through this before. You mentioned, you know, I've done a film with 1,200 visual effects shots before. And a lot of times when you do these things, you have to move quickly because you don't have a lot of time. And sometimes people around you don't exactly know what you're doing, but you have it in your head. You know how it's going to come together. So that's challenging a little bit. And it sometimes gets in the way of your ability to enjoy the performance, or to be able to kind of keep a dial on that as well. But I want to say one thing about what James did in that scene, which I think is so remarkable, because, you know, obviously in designing the shape of the film, that was supposed to be the climax, and I love it that for you it played this way as well. But you know, there was the idea that in a big part of that scene, he looks physically, in terms of the appearance, you know, in a lot of the movies that I've kind of looked at before doing this film. So I looked at all what was done in the kind of clone world before, and in many of those scenes, they dress the character differently, or they make the hair different or something, so that the actor has an easier time looking and appearing to be somebody else. And in this movie, the majority of that climax, James looks exactly the same in both parts, but yet he's playing completely different characters, and that's
It's in his
testimony to
face.
what he's done.
It's in his face, guy. I could tell Adam's character. He's always had this look of desperation, So every time I would see them, I could tell them apart. I really could.
Yeah, and that's again a testimony to I think what James was able to do, there, which was remarkable to me. You could tell it's a clone of someone. It's not a completely different character, but it's a different version of that same
Right. Six packs
same
and
person. Yeah, exactly.
And tell me about working with the great Delroy Lindo. And the moment he's in your movie, the first scene, your value of your film just goes through the roof. I mean, he is just, it's been too long since I've seen him in a movie. He's just fantastic.
Well, he's just in the Five Bloods right now. He's great in that movie.
Yeah, wow.
But I mean, Delroy's just, he has a voice that demands you stop whatever you're doing and listen. His voice is the greatest voice I think I have ever heard in real life. It is so melodious, and you cannot help but pay attention. Plus also, Delroy's a phenomenal actor. And, we were trying to deal with some pretty hefty questions in the movie. And he we'd get together at the beginning of the day and talk through the sequences, and he would be so good at getting to what the truth of that was. And then he would speak, and that was phenomenal. Honestly, it was too wonderful to work with.
And
I mean, I gotta say, he's the consummate professional. Like for an actor who's kind of been around for so long. Sometimes, and I've done films before and produced films before for other people where you don't always manage to, you sometimes have to work to inspire the kind of more experienced actors to sort of like rise to the occasion. With Delroy, it was almost the opposite. Like he comes to your set with this exuberance, like he's there to milk whatever the opportunity is from an actor's perspective and it's infectious. It's beautiful.
And finally today, Guy, the world of LX 2048, the set design, the locations, you imply a dystopian future without going overboard. You just hint enough that we're not in our current time. And I was wondering, was that a challenge because of Adam's, home life and his offices and seeing those cool kind of futuristic transportation things going on? But it's very subtle. And that's what I really liked about it. You don't knock us over the head with, hey, look, we're 40 or 50 years in the future.
Because I honestly find this ridiculous when I see, and this is nothing to do with budget or like if you're really trying to imagine the future. I mean, we're in 2020. The year 2000 doesn't, this obviously changes, but like when you go 20 years ago, it's not like the world was like suddenly, and I sometimes see these films, no offense to any other filmmaker, some of which were even like targeting the same time frame we're talking about. By the way, the reason it's 2048 is because it's supposed to be 3 years after singularity in theory. So, you see those visions of the future and you go, what are you guys talking about? Like, when have you seen in the last 100 years such a jump? Like now in 30 years, suddenly we're all living on clouds, and I don't believe in that. I don't think it's realistic at all. So that was the approach here. I also think the more virtual the world goes, the more we transfer more of our life into a computerized reality, the less need we're going to have to showcase that reality outside, and not to scare anyone, but just the thought about like even cinema theaters. I mean, how many theaters are going to be in existence in like 10 years from now, for instance? So it's like you could imagine those places that are closing down, decaying. How many malls are going to exist in a world where you buy everything online? I don't know what's going to happen to all these malls. They're certainly not going to look more advanced and new, in 20 years. So it's scary, but that's what I was thinking. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm saying you created really smart sci-fi, which I really appreciate. I just saw Raised by Wolves on HBO from Ridley Scott, another sci-fi, so it's like we have some really smart sci-fi and not campy. And I just love the respect you had to the genre, both of you. And I thought it was a real fascinating film.
Thank you so much, man. It means a lot to hear that, and for a wonderful interview as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for joining me today, and let's talk again soon. And come visit us in Las Vegas. We'd love to have you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
for sure.
Very
It's a good
much.
place to visit always.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys. Good luck.
Cheers.